Welcome back, Gator Nation, to the In All Kinds of Weather forecast. I am your host, Neil Shulman. You can follow me on Twitter at All Kinds Weather, as well as on Instagram under that same handle. Joined as always by Adrian Perez. Going to try to move on from that disgusting South Florida game and talk about the Gators' next opponent. They open SEC play this week. They open the real part of their schedule with LSU, a team that they're oh so familiar with. The Gators, of course, are going to be reunited with former defensive lineman Jack Pyburn in Baton Rouge. Before we talk about all that, though, got to shout out our sponsor. Of course, All Kinds of Weather Forecast is proudly sponsored by 401k Generation, which is the wealth management company that helps you invest today for your future tomorrow. Their team of advisors is committed to providing guidance and education for your 401k plan and its participants. They also offer a range of enrollment solutions tailored to meet the unique needs of your company's 401k plan. Whether it's savings for your child's college, investment advice, or even just your retirement, 401k Generation's team of advisors makes getting to know you their top priority. Their advisors will tailor a path to assist you in navigating life's financial milestones and reaching your financial goals. That is 401k Generations, building stronger futures, one generation at a time. For more information, please contact them at 866-998-5879 or visit their website at 401kgeneration.com. Okay, Florida, LSU. It's a rivalry game. It may be the last iteration of this rivalry, at least on an annual basis. Adrian, we know we've got a big game this week, or at least what seems to be a big game before Florida went and micturated down its own leg against South Florida. So let's talk about the rivalry as a whole, though, before we even talk about this year's game. As we know, the rivalry is in jeopardy with the SEC going to a 9-game schedule, the 3-6 model. Everyone's going to be picking up 3 annual opponents and will play the other 6 games of its 9-game SEC slate on a rotating basis. So it's not going away forever if Florida doesn't draw LSU as one of its 3 permanents, but it's not going to be an annual game anymore. So talk to me about what you think of this Florida-LSU rivalry, some of your favorite memories in it, and just how much it would suck to lose it.
Well, the Florida-LSU rivalry, man, it goes back a ways, but the thing that sticks out with it the most is just all the crazy stuff that has happened around this game, right? You got to start with the shoe toss. You got to start with that game, what happened with the fog rolling in first. The LSU game was where the jump pass was first unveiled. Okay, that's when Tebow hit Tay Casey with the jump pass. And then, of course, Les Miles returned the favor some years later and jump past Florida. Les Miles had a game in which he went for it on 4th down like about 7-8 times and got him every time. Just some crazy things, man. And I'm sure that you're going to add a bunch to this now also. So just a lot of crazy stuff in this game. It's usually more in the middle of the season. I can't even remember the last time that they played this early. It became a tough game for Florida, obviously, in the post-Spurrier era. LSU had something to do with that. They got a little bit better, obviously, a lot better. Back in the 90s, it was a different SEC. LSU was not that tough. They had some really bad coaches, Jerry DiNardo, Curly Hallman, just a few. Les Miles really settled things down there. Well, it started with Nick Saban, obviously, prior to that. And then Les Miles picked up the slack. Say what you want about LSU, them being one of our bitter rivals, but what they've done, winning all these national championships with different coaches, is very impressive. Starting with Saban, then going to Les Miles, then going to Orgeron. Who would have thought Orgeron could win a national championship? So it's a very impressive what they've done over there. It's a rivalry that I think we lose either this one or the Tennessee rivalry. One of them is not going to be the permanent 3-game set because there's no way that they're going to give Florida, Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee. They're going to give Florida, Georgia, and then LSU or Tennessee, and then one of the lower to mid-lower tier SEC teams, which I hate to break it to you, but right now we're one of them, okay? But I'm talking more like in the Kentucky, Vandy, South Carolina, Mississippi State range. I think you're going to get somebody from that group more than likely to go along with Georgia and or LSU and Tennessee. But in reality, the way I see it, I think it's a little bit much ado about nothing, Neil, to be honest with you. Because when it's all said and done, you're going to play every team in the SEC in a 4-year period, home and away. So that's close enough for me that for me personally, I'm still going to get a taste of the rivalry. It's not like you're going to go 5, 6, 7 years without seeing somebody, So the way I see it, I think it's a little much ado about nothing. I think you're still going to get a taste for a Tennessee rivalry, an LSU rivalry, and guess what? You're even going to get a taste again of a little bit of that that we haven't had. Okay, so that's how I see it with the new schedule format. Neil, I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I just wonder if Tennessee and LSU both have 3 games each that the SEC deems to be more important than Florida. Tennessee, you could make the argument that Alabama, Kentucky, and Vandy are more important because, I mean, Vandy's got to play someone, and you may as well put them with a rival who occupies the same state as them. LSU is interesting. They've got a trophy game against Arkansas. They call it the Battle for the Golden Boot that they play for. They've got a rivalry trophy game against Mississippi. They call it the Magnolia Bowl because that's the state flower of those states. And then they've got the obvious one, LSU, Alabama. So the SEC could very easily say, okay, both of those teams have 3 games that are more important than Florida. Let's give the Gators neither of them. And let's stick Florida with, we know Georgia's one of them because we know that. We could be stuck with a Kentucky and a South Carolina as the other two, or we could get a Mississippi State like you talked about. I have a feeling Florida is going to get Oklahoma or a Missouri or someone random that they don't really have much history with. Of course, Oklahoma we did beat for the Natty. But I think, long story short, for the sake of this conversation with LSU, I think we are seeing the end of Florida LSU as an annual series. I don't see us playing them every year, given that they have 3 games that the SEC is going to see as more important. So, like you said, we'll get tastes. It's not going to be all bad. There will be some good that comes out of this. Like you mentioned, Auburn. We've played Auburn 2 times since 2007. We used to play them every single year. So we'll get that back every other year or 2 times in 4 years. So I'm not complaining about it, but it is going to suck to lose the Tennessee rivalry and then to lose the LSU rivalry. So with that said, some of the great games that come to my mind, obviously the jump pass game of 2006. Interesting here, my grandfather brought me up on this. He's the reason I'm a Gator fan because he was an old-time Gator back in the Stephen O'Connell days. He was very good friends with Stephen O'Connell, which is part of why I continue to root for them. But 1960 was a game where Florida played LSU in Baton Rouge, and there's a pileup in the middle of this game, and Florida players rip the wristband off of LSU's quarterback, Jimmy Field. And back then, that's how they call plays. There's no helmet communication and stuff in those days in 1960. The guy looks at his wristband, like a little bit bigger than the watch, maybe like from here to here or so. And he's got his plays. He's got his play sheet all on there. Florida takes that away from him in the middle of a pileup. So now they know exactly what's coming. They know exactly which formations are going to mean which plays are coming, kind of like everyone else does whenever Billy Napier calls plays. And they were able to shut LSU down. They shut them out the entire second half. Florida comes back from down 10-7 to win 13-10. And then the funniest part is after the game is over, a Florida coach goes over to LSU's bench and gives them back the wristband, saying, one of our guys found this on the field. Here you go. Take it back, after Florida just basically stole their entire playbook. So he brought me up on that. My grandfather did. That was just hilarious to me when I first learned that when I was like 5 or 6 years old. He told me that story because he was on the sideline for that. So that's hilarious. So that's how deep back this rivalry goes. It's not just something that's new. Because I know Hurricane Matthew in 2016 with that whole mess, everyone kind of thinks the rivalry just got meaner since then. And I agree with that. The game that year that I personally call the goal line stand from Tigerland, just because it pisses off their band, is something that I think, changed the rivalry, but its roots have been in existence for long before that. So, I mean, you've got the 2007 game, like you mentioned, 2009, where they go into Death Valley and win in a top 4 matchup. Florida does. 2012, Odell Beckham with the strip. So there's a lot of history here, and it is going to suck to lose it. But before we lose it, we do have this one more game on the docket, at least for now, before we go to the 2 and 4 years set up. Adrian, let's talk about it. What are we going to see from Florida against LSU after what we just talked about, as you said, beating the horse to death against USF, an all-time ugly loss for Florida? What do we see in their next showing on the field?
Man, when I saw that we were going to talk about this and you asked that specific question, the first thing that came to my mind was the Kevin Garnett meme on social media. Anything is possible, right? Anything is possible, Neil. I have no clue what we're going to see from Florida. They could lay a massive stinker, or they could beat LSU with no problem, no doubt. They could beat LSU, okay? I have no clue really what's going to happen. It all depends on, where these players are at mentally, okay? I think that's going to be a big focus. And let's be honest, Neil, Billy hasn't won an SEC road game against a competent opponent yet. Okay. The only SEC wins he has are like Vandy, I think Mississippi State,
not
something
on the road,
to that effect.
He lost him. Like South Carolina in 23 is the best one he has.
Yeah. Okay. So, Billy's road game, okay, has left a lot to be desired here, man. So, and this is probably about as tough a place as you could play on the road. And it starts this gauntlet that the Gators now have. So what to expect, I don't know. You tell me, Neil, and maybe I could piggyback off of you. What do you expect, man?
I mean, like I said, even in the USF postgame and multiple times on Twitter, I actually have, for all the all the so-called hate I've been throwing at Billy Napier, I actually think that Florida is going to show up in this game. I would be very surprised if Florida just lays down and plays that. Of course, I was surprised when they did that against Miami last year. So I guess what you said, you don't know with Billy Napier, because you think Miami last year is going to be the game that everyone gets up to play. That doesn't happen. And then you think they're going to be dead when LSU comes to town after Texas just terminated your soul the week before in Austin. And nope, you show up and you win that game. So I have no idea. I think that there's some school of thought that this could be seen as like a last stand kind of deal. I think there is a school of thought that, we're going to see Jack Pyburn again. Nice to see you again, sir. Here's an L. And there's going to be that kind of mindset in the Florida Gators as they go to battle. But what I saw in the trenches between Florida and South Florida does not give me a good feeling in this game. Like I think Florida will play better. I think Lagway, I think he'll rise to the occasion. I'm presuming a lot in saying this here, but I think he'll step up and just be a gamer and hit some plays that he hasn't hit in the first couple of games this year. I think our defense is good. I think we just haven't seen its best form yet. Obviously, Caleb Banks' status, we now know that LJ McCray is going to miss a lot of time. That sucks. But I still think that there's enough there that we can see them not stop Garrett Nussmeier in the LSU offense, but at least somewhat contain them and not let them put up a school record 700 plus yards like we did the last time that Florida went to this place. So I expect this to be a fairly close game. I don't know that Florida is going to win it, but I expect to see the Gators put up a fight.
On that real quick, there's also a school of thought that basically Billy has been so excited to have had a couple of manageable first couple of ball games that this is kind of like the game he's been preparing for since the end of last season. It was this game, okay? He didn't have to prepare for Utah or Miami during the offseason. So maybe that's the case. We'll see. I think it all starts, though, also with Banks playing. You brought his name up. For Florida to have a chance in this game, I think Caleb Banks better play because you're already playing the first half without Bet, more than likely. Well, that's definite. And then more than likely
he got ejected,
yeah.
so he carries over to the first.
Definitely the first half. More than likely, he'll come back for the second. But I think you have to have Banks. And you got to have the Banks from the end of last year. Like, he doesn't have a game to warm up here and get cozied up into playing SEC football. He's got to go right into the deep end of the swimming pool, okay, and play like he did last year. I think for Florida to even have a chance, he needs to wreak havoc in the center of that line, man.
I think it's a little bit more. Yes, you're right. I think it's on the other side of the ball too. Florida's offensive line has to show up. Like I said in the last show, Napier spent all this time telling us what a strength his offensive line was going to be in the offseason, and they just did not show it against South Florida. This is the game that I think he was referring to, that his offensive line was going to be ready for. So let's see it. I don't know. Jake Slaughter does have a brick in his history here. Austin Barber's done a lot of good things over the years here. Damian George has not had a good start to the year, but he's done some good things for Florida at guard before. So, like, there's reason for me to think that maybe this offensive line can do some things and create some holes for running backs like Jaden Baugh, who, by the way, we didn't even shout him out last game, but I think he's clearly separated himself as RB1. And give Lagway time to go through his reads and actually do some of the things that we've been so high on him potentially being able to do for us. So if you can't give Lagway time to do that, if you can't give Jaden Baugh room to run, Florida has no chance. Like, it doesn't even matter how well the defense plays, because like we saw against South Florida, defense for the most part did play well. They just broke in the end because they were asked to do too much. I'm not even talking about Brendan Betts spitting. I'm talking about the 66-yard touchdown pass that South Florida hit. So if you let LSU, or sorry, like I said for South Florida, if you let South Florida hang around for too long, eventually they're going to take the lead and they're going to beat you. It's a little different in this game because you can't talk about LSU as the massive favorite, the top 5 team hanging around with you as the huge underdog on the road. But the longer that you frustrate them and give yourselves a chance to make the plays to win the game, the more chances you give them to make mistakes. And if your offensive line just can't give your offense any ability to function at all, eventually your defense will break and you will lose a game something like 24-7 or something like that. So it's got to start with the offensive line for Florida. We've got to see something better from them than we saw a week ago against South Florida. Okay, so before we get to our verdict, before we get to our keys to the game and all that, I want to get your thoughts on what we're going to see from DJ Lagway, because we talked about him in a good amount of detail against South Florida, and like, this is the game that we've got to see something from him, or else I think we have to start talking about a QB change, because if things get worse than they have been for him, it's going to be a rough ride.
I agree. I mean, DJ Lagway, I was going to talk about him later on when I got to our game predictions. He was going to play a big role in that. I guess I'll touch upon it now a little bit without giving away too much. But I'm shook, Neil. I'm shook. Okay? DJ Lagway's performance has me shaken. Okay? Everything to start this year rested on the shoulders of DJ Lagway. I mean, we couldn't have a conversation about this season without first giving the preface of saying, if DJ Lagway stays healthy, and then we will continue with whatever we were going to say, right? Regardless of what we were talking about. It could have been offense, defense, special teams. Yeah, if DJ Lagway stays healthy, So everything was around DJ Lagway. And just, I mean, listen, Gator Nation has a way of anointing players sometime. And when you're the quarterback, you know, it's even more so. So I understand people saying, oh, you're being too rough on DJ Lagway, you know, because they've already anointed him. Let's face it, Neil, he's been anointed, okay? This young man has been anointed the savior of Florida football. And his performance these first 2 games has me shook. If you put a last name on him other than Lagway, you put a uniform on him other than Florida's uniform, any other quarterback in the nation, their head coach is thinking about benching that football player. and thinking about their backup quarterback. Okay? Any other coach, any other school in the nation. He's been playing flat out poorly, man. Flat out poor football. Like bad. I mean, I've talked harsher on this than you have, Neil. But his footwork, his mechanics in the pocket are just horrendous. Is it injury? And we talked about it last episode. Probably we'll never know. Maybe it'll come out 5 years from now. Okay? In a book. Who knows? But it's just bad. It's just bad football he's playing, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, he's missing reads. Like, he's missing guys who are running open down the field. He's missing on throws when he does choose the right receiver. And I hate to use Napier's words against Lagway, but he's kind of playing scared in a little bit. I hate that. I hate that's what my eyes are telling me. But I mean, some of the times he's just deciding to not unleash the ball when he does have a matchup in his favor, whether it's because he doesn't see him or because he does see them but just doesn't trust himself to make that throw, which was never an issue last year at any point, whether it was before or after the hamstring injury, which is a different type of injury than he's dealing with this year. But still, I'm just a big fat question mark right here. I have no idea what we're going to get from him either.
On the touchdown, Florida's drive, the 20-yard drive set up by VB3's punt return. Before they scored the touchdown, remember that they had the play to I was about to say Tate Casey, to Hayden Hansen. He was wide open. But again, it was kind of like a Billy play design. If you look at the replay, Hayden Hansen and there was a wide receiver who escapes me. They were like within 2 yards of each other. And I don't know really who DJ was throwing the ball to. Was he throwing it to Hansen or was he throwing it to the wide receiver? The wide receiver was covered, okay? Hayden Hansen was like, that's like a layup of layups. He was uncovered at the goal line, a little 5-yard pass, just get the ball to him. That's it. DJ, first of all, he threw the ball for no reason. He wasn't being pressured. Throws it completely off balance, off platform, falling back from the side. The ball lofts up on him. And if Hayden Hansen doesn't try to make a play on it because it was over his head, it's probably picked off. Okay, so now Florida ends up scoring later on. But that was just one play that was just bad. And there's so many like that. It's just scary, man. It's just scary. And I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to see Tremel Jones, trust me, coming into a game in Death Valley as a true freshman for his second appearance of his college career. I don't want to see that. Okay, so for Florida to have the best chance to win this game, you got to get a better version of DJ Lagway. That's no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about throwing a guy to the wolves, or I guess in this case the tiger, or throwing the guy into the fire. Like that's about as rough of a situation as you could possibly introduce a guy to big-time college football in, as you can even dream of. And I get it; he has thrown passes before. He did get the second half against LIU, but that does not compare to facing an LSU defense. First, with the athletes that they've got on their defense. Tack that on to the noise, the stadium pulse he'll be dealing with there. That's not a good situation. On the other hand, if DJ Lagway, as I said in the last show, he did pretty much everything wrong that you could have thought he would except turn the ball over. If he adds that to his list of problems and he starts giving the football away, that's when I think you might be able to see Tremel Jones, simply because you have no choice. Because if Lagway
he had the one pick.
Correct.
Against USF.
One and two games.
Yeah, which, by the way, on that play, Vernell Brown was wide open on a crosser.
Yeah.
Probably is still running right across my house right now, okay, if he had hit him. So,
that's another
but that was all game. That was all game. So, if it sounds like I'm being too harsh, for me, there's reason.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. I think there is fairness behind what you say. Again, I think that DJ Lagway is going to need some help from his offensive line, because if they can't block LSU's front, it's not going to matter if it's Lagway or if it's Trammell Jones, or if Lagway has his A game that day or his D game that day. It's not going to matter. You got to be able to hold off LSU's pass rush to be able to do much of anything offensively. And not that he's the star player for LSU, but you got to hold off Jack Pyburn. Like, you cannot let him be the one to beat you in this game. You cannot let Jack Pyburn get a sack or even a pass deflected at the line. You can't give him that opportunity. And he hasn't done a ton of great things so far in 2 games, but if this is his breakout game, if this is his welcome to LSU party, can you imagine how that's going to sting for Florida fans and player? Well, I guess the players are going to have Miami to worry about, so they can't worry about this too much. But that's going to be an all-time bragging right for them and for Pyburn. So, all right, let's get to our verdict. Let's talk about what we think is going to happen in this game between Florida and LSU. The spread is at current 9.5 for LSU. Adrian, you can go first with your keys to the game. What have you got?
All right, I got 3. The first one we already talked about a little bit. Where's their head at? That's the key to the game for me, number 1 right there. Where is Florida's head at? Okay, I'll be honest with you, Neil. Do guys start thinking about checking out? Have guys started to check out after such a horrific loss, knowing what they got in front of them? One thing that has to be talked about nowadays is the opt-outs. Remember, you get 4 games. The 4th game happens to be that Miami game. If Florida starts 1-3, Neil, I bet your bottom dollar, all of a sudden you're going to see some season-ending injuries maybe. I'm just speculating, man. And unfortunately, that's something you got to speculate nowadays. That's the game of college football today. Do I like it? No. Okay? But that's how it freaking is, man. It gets me mad because I hate it. But that's stuff you got to talk about nowadays. This team starts 1-3. There's going to be kids thinking about opting out and saving that year of football for when they hit the portal. Okay? Guaranteed. Because guess what? They're paid mercenaries nowadays. That's what they are. I know we love them. They got the F on, but that's how college football is nowadays. I hate to get rough like that, but this is one subject that really sometimes gets me going. But anyways, key number 2. You got to control LSU's linebackers, okay? They have a 3-headed monster at linebacker. One guy we know a lot, Harold Perkins, was almost a Gator. His old man stepped in there, kind of convinced them going to LSU was best for him. Okay. Harold Perkins came into the season, Neil, supposedly playing the nickel. That was his position status. But they play more of a 4-3 with Harold Perkins on one side. And then in the center, you got Whit Weeks. And then on the other side, you got Wes Weeks. They're 2 brothers. Whit Weeks is 40. Wes Weeks is 33, and then Harold Perkins wears number 7. These 3 guys will ruin your day if you let them. Okay, and it's funny because towards the end of last episode, we talked about USF's linebackers. We had spotlighted one of them in the preview to the USF game, Schuler, and both him and his linebacking partner led USF in tackles for losses, tackles, solo tackles, and tackles behind the line of scrimmage, okay? So our line had trouble with them, it looks like. These guys are going to be a handful. Harold Perkins is playing some of his best football since his freshman year when he bursted onto the scene, and then he had a sophomore slump. They didn't know how quite to use him. They wanted to change his position. It looks like they found something that is in his wheelhouse right now. He's playing downhill, Neil. He's playing downhill. He's rushing the passer, and when he's not rushing the passer, he's normally filling in gaps and playing downhill, man. All 3 of them are sure tacklers. So you're going to need the offensive line to get out to that second level and put some blocks on these guys, because even Jaden Bogg will have a problem going up against these guys if they're hitting them behind the line of scrimmage, man. So controlling LSU's linebackers, neutralizing them somewhat, is my key number 2. My key number 3, you got to find a way to put some pressure on Nussmeier. It's one of the things this season that has surprised me the most. I thought right now, Neil, do you even remember Gums making a play yet? He made a couple plays in the first game, kind of like invisible in the USF game. I have Gums down for a monster year, man. Okay? It needs to start in this game. If George Gums Jr. doesn't register at least his first sack this game, Florida loses. Okay? He needs at least 1 sack, probably multiple sacks. They need probably 4 to 5 sacks this game. That's the number that I'm putting on it. They need to have 4 to 5 sacks this game to beat LSU. Okay? If not, Nussmeier is not going to miss the throws that the kid last week did. Okay? Go back and watch that game last week. Brown, he missed a bunch of throws of open receivers. Nussmeier is not going to miss them. You better find a way to put pressure on him. Okay? So those are my 3 keys to the game, Neil.
You took almost all my talking points. I was going to hit on the Weeks brothers one. I guess the one you didn't really touch on was Florida's got to stop the LSU ground game. Not that it's been spectacular statistically, but from what I saw from Florida's defensive front in the first couple of games, they're very much susceptible to just getting beaten down and bruised at the point of attack by opponents. And if LIU can have any highlights and USF can, at the most generous of characteristics, hold you to an impasse, like fight you to a draw in the trenches, then it doesn't bode well for what LSU and Miami are going to do. So LSU's bell cow is Caden Durham. He's by far got the most carries. He has 30. No one else has more than 10 on the year for them. So if Florida's defensive front, especially the front 7, is not ready to go, then we could see a repeat of 2021 where LSU just runs the same counter with Ty Davis Price and he gets a school record for yardage. I don't think that LSU is a run-first team by nature just because they have the best quarterback in the country potentially, but they may not need to do anything more if Florida's defense isn't prepared to stop the simplest of running plays. So for Florida, first things first, just make sure you don't get beaten by the elementary running plays. The dive play, maybe a simple pitch out. Be sure you're able to run your gaps correctly. Be sure to not over pursue and leave a cutback lane and there's no one there, so he goes for 70 yards and a touchdown. Like, do the most elementary things first, and let's get to a point where Garrett Nussmeier has to make throws, period. Because if he doesn't have to, there's no reason for him to do it. Just keep it simple. Work smarter, not harder. So Florida's defense has to come ready to play. That's my first key. Second key, I already touched on this, protect DJ Lagway. For the love of God, please protect DJ Lagway. We don't want to get to a spot where we're forced to have to go to Trammell Jones. If we do go to Trammell Jones, it should be because there's a decision made to go there, not because Lagway is just not able to do anything and then he gets buried from behind. So offensive line's got to step up and just play better, frankly, than they played the first couple games. So those are my keys. All right, let's make some predictions. First, your percent chance to score or percent chance for Florida to win and the score prediction. I've got mine down on my iPad before we show both of ours. The model that we have in all kinds of weather has been very, very successful in picking games against the spread. I think if you have like a 53 or 54% record against the spread, you're good enough to make money as a professional gambler. And our spread, the money sign like Johnny Manziel, our model is almost 75%. It is 61 of 83 against the spread, which is 73.5%. That is frightening. Dustin, our guy who's also producing the show, is just stealing money from Las Vegas at this point. So good stuff on Dustin. Florida is favored to win this game or lose this game according to the model by 8 points. The spread of the model is 7.5. It has LSU covering that by, of course, 0.5 point. So, Adrian, you get first crack at this. We're going to raise our iPads up or our whiteboard, whatever, up, and let's see what you've got after you. Okay.
I got a 15% chance of the Gators to win. I have LSU defeating Florida 34-13.
All right. I've got Florida at a 35.3% chance to win. I think LSU wins by an even 2 tutties, 38-24. Like I said, I think Florida shows up to this game and they fight, but I think that LSU first having more natural talent than Florida does. And then the second thing, not that Brian Kelly is a clock management professor by any means, but we beat that horse to death, as you said, right in the last show, Napier's idiocy. So, yeah, they have the better in-game coach. Not that he's great, but ours is just worse. So those two things together, and the fact that it's in Death Valley, I think that there's just too many factors that don't add up very well for Florida.
This right here, this 34, right? Neil, I still have confidence in this defense, man. They're going to have to prove me wrong by laying a couple more bad games. But I still have confidence in the players on that defense, man. This 34 is not contradictory to what I'm saying. I'm putting this on just being put in bad positions. I think the crowd is going to have a massive effect on our offense. I think our defense is going to hold up, but eventually, towards the end of the third quarter into the fourth, the dam's going to break a little bit, and LSU might tack on a 10, maybe 14 points there, and that's where this comes from. I just don't have confidence at all right now in our offense. We already talked about how shaken I am with DJ, and already shaken before the season started with Billy and him being the offensive coordinator, play caller. And now the combination of Billy being the offensive coordinator, play caller, with a DJ Lagway that it's clearly not playing how he was at the end of last year. Just is too much for a 7:30 kick?
Yep.
Regardless.
You see,
nighttime in Death Valley. It's going to be a madhouse. Number 3 in the nation. They know Florida's reeling. They want blood, man. They are going to want blood. And it's going to be a tough environment. Something that our offense hasn't had to deal with yet. They haven't had to deal with a tough road environment.
Or a tough defense, at least on paper, with good time athletes. Get ready for LSU's social media team to have an absolute field day with Florida when they beat us, by the way, because they do that. So, yeah, if you're one of those big social media people, I would recommend either preparing for the onslaught from them or just not even being on, whichever is better for you. Or if you take it all in good stride, then just enjoy the masochistic activity of watching LSU just clown us left and right on Twitter. So we'll have to see. There's a possibility we're both wrong. Like I said, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that LSU wins. I gave Florida a 35% chance to win, so not a guarantee. But, I mean, Adrian, you gave Florida 15%. Even that's not really a guarantee. So there's a chance. Yes, we're saying there's a chance. I don't think there's a very good one, but it's not a complete given that Florida does get embarrassed. So we'll have to wait and see. Until then, y'all, stay safe, stay healthy, cross your fingers, chomp on, whatever else you want to do to get yourself as hyped up for this game as you possibly can, because you never know when this game is going to go away, at least on an annual basis. So until next time, y'all, Neil Shulman of In All Kinds of Weather, Adrian Perez, of course. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're on Apple, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. All that great stuff helps us bring you more great Gator content. So Hope for the best, y'all. Maybe this is something that we're going to remember for a long time in a good way, as opposed to what we got last week.